How do you feel about Dana White getting a call from Disney and them going, listen, we understand what you're trying to do. We understand you're a businessman. You said this is very hard. We assume that you've been able to figure out ways and loopholes to make this happen. But we're not about it. You can't do it. Take a seat, stand down. And which is what he said basically to Okamoto. Mm-hmm. What's the guy's name?
Brett Okamoto.
Yeah. Okamoto. He told him, I was basically told to stand down, but as soon as this is ready to go, I can put fights up the next day. I'm intrigued to hear how that conversation went. And do you think Dana White's an easy person to tell, like, yeah, you can't do that? Like, it had to be the top of Disney, right? Iger just stepped down. So whoever the new person is at the top of Disney, who oversees the parks and the movies and the everything, and ESPN had to be like, yeah, you can't do it. And Dana was probably like, fuck you. And they're like, no, you really can't. And he's like, fuck you. They're like, no, you have to. I would be intrigued to be a fly on the wall for that conversation there.
Yeah, I hope Dana has some cameras rolling. I'm sure he doesn't right now. Like they used to do, like they do embedded, like the 24/7 their version leading up to fights. I hope Dana had someone following him around throughout this whole process when he got that call, because I would imagine he was not super happy. And he even said, like, this came from the highest level, and I was ordered to stand down. So I have nothing. I can't fight anymore to make this happen. But then he makes sure that he says, Fight Island is real. It's going to happen. I'm going to put on fights there. And he says wherever the casino that they were going to have UFC 249 at, he's like, when all this is over, I'm bringing fights there, because they were ready to go. They're ready to roll. They're one of my they were with me, so I'm going to reward them in the future whenever this all clears up. So Dana seems to be a loyal guy. If you stand up and you're going to do something, I guess, out of the norm for him, or you take a fight on short notice, he'll take care of you.
He's from Boston. Did he call it Fight Island?
Yeah, that's what he's calling it.
Great name. Oh, my God, the reality show. I already see it.
All aboard.
But it was...
Oh, my God. 18 humans arrived at Fight Island on Thursday. By Friday morning, 9 sons of bitches survived. 2 casualties, 6 casted off the island. Now we're down to our final 9. Who will kill who? Who will behead who? Who will scalp a motherfucker on Fight Island? Dun, dun, dun. That'd be awesome. Dun, dun, How do we get on to Fight Island? Can we get a press pass for Fight Island?
Ooh.
I would like a press pass for our show on Fight Island for Dana's operation.
I'll apply right
I mean, there's crazier things that have happened. I think we should let's put it out there, Pat, that we want to whenever the first fight happens at Fight Island, we'd like to have some kind of role.
Yeah, listen, and even if that's us just sitting on our own little tiki, you know what I mean, like doing our own thing,
8 feet apart, and we'll have a long XLR cables, and we'll be doing a show.
And us just talking to each other, by the way. I don't even think anybody of UFC crowd needs to hear us. Like, if we could just do it for our own thing, like, that's completely okay. We'll just observe and report while everybody's watching Fight Island at home.
Yeah, and Dana doesn't have to worry about us asking him any
No, we don't care.
Little nerd questions. Like, we don't care. We just want to hear Dana go off. And I want to say, hey, so Dana, how do you feel about Gavin Newsom out there in California? Is he one of your best friends?
Is that what you think potentially happened here? You think potentially
that's a rumor that Gavin Newsom reached out to Disney and asked them, like, pleaded with them, please don't let this happen, because it was in California, and then that is what spurred Disney, ESPN to kind of shut this thing down. So I would imagine Dana's going to carry a pretty big chip on his shoulder for Gavin Newsom.
Oh, who was it? Oh, it was California. Okay, yeah, all right. We'll never do another fucking fight there. Forever and ever, amen. They're never getting another dollar from me. It's interesting, though, that the government, Disney, who owns everything, by the way. Disney not only owns ESPN, they own all of Fox, they own all of everything. Disney owns everything. The top person who's probably been trying to deal with, I don't know, furloughs and layoffs and different companies, and now they got the Dana White page that just slides across, and they're like, all right, you got to handle this today. The governor said that this cannot happen, and you have to make it happen. They're like, well, call Dana into my office, I guess. You think they're FaceTime that? Do they FaceTime that thing?
No, I think that's a landline call, from landline to landline, maybe speakerphone.
I bet you it's tapped then, right? Somebody heard it. You think Gavin Newsom was listening in? I want to make sure you tell him that this ain't happening. I hope so bad that what you said is right. I hope they were recording. I hope Dana White's first reaction is fuck you. I hope so bad for the Dana White brand that was his first reaction. Because Greeny interviewed him the other day trying to get information. He was just like, nah, Not like literally, Greeny, you're in 2 Hall of Fames. You're a legend in the broadcasting world. Get Up is your show. I understand we're on ESPN, which is a company that has paid me billions and billions of dollars for my company. But nah, I'm not telling you anything. Dana White seems to have that mentality where it's like, yeah, fuck you. And I hope he did that in that call with whoever called him, told him he can't have his fights or Fight Island.
Well, I think ESPN's in a weird spot too. They obviously, for financial reasons, want these fights to happen. But they also know like the optics of it, what it looks like. We know there's no live sports going on, so you would hope to get a ton of eyeballs on it, even if it is a pay-per-view. So they're in a weird spot, I guess. I don't know. Disney, when Disney owns everything about it, like it's a kids brand. Like you can't really be taking giant chances like that.
This is what a guy on the YouTube comment section, he said, State is in a tough spot. His name's Sean Marshall, taking first responders to be at a fight. I would assume Dana White wouldn't mind just paying his own personal doctors to be there, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would assume like Dana's okay with just being like, all right, listen, we're going to pay our own doctors to come in. We'll pay our own. Well, then those doctors aren't fighting COVID-19.
Yeah. What about the doctors and trainers that the fighters have?
Well, and doesn't UFC, I assume they have their own medical staff. Like
I'm sure they do.
Every NFL team has 15 to 20 people working in their medical staff. I would assume the UFC has some sort of something there, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, they do, but they also have local, like when fighters after fights, if they get beat up pretty bad, they need to get checked out at the hospital. They go to the closest local hospital. I think the closest hospital to where this UFC 249 was going to happen was 30 or 40 minutes away, and I don't know. People thought that was too far. I don't know. I don't. We got close. We got close. It's April 10th. He canceled on April 9th. So we were 9 days away.
How nice would that have been? To have
it was a monster fight card too. It wasn't like just throwing some bums out there. There's a lot of awesome fights on the card.
Obviously, the safeties and precautions of everybody is more important. So I have to say that so people know that. But how awesome would that have been to have some live action competition and something to talk about? This show, every show would have became a UFC show next week.
Gamble on
every sports show would have been a UFC show next week because they have highlights, have replays, have analysis. Yeah. Even like listening to Marcus Spears or Orlovsky, or they would have them all talk about like these guys. Dan would be like, I was watching a film on them, and it's the whole thing. It would have became because it would have been the only show in town.
Would Schefter report on this? You think?
According to my sources. Dana White told Gavin Newsom to suck a bag of dicks. He then called the head of Disney, and then the head of Disney called me to report that the head of Disney had a Zoom with Dana White. Dana White told him to also eat a bag of dicks, and then it was ultimately decided to cancel the fight. Nobody's happy with this, but Gavin Newsom and the head of Disney no longer have to eat a suck or bag of dicks. Adam Schefter out.
Do you think they would have beat every number, like every UFC?
Oh yeah.
Like even like the McGregor fight?
It was a pay-per-view though. I don't know.
I think people would have definitely paid for it.
Social media. I think they would have all got ripped. Everything would have got ripped and put on social media, and I assume their numbers would have been bigger than ever. WrestleMania this past week, and again, it was over a 2-night, which is something that hasn't been talked about with WrestleMania social media numbers being higher than they've ever been. But the Nielsen social rating, which nobody knows what the fuck that is. We live on the internet and work on the internet. I don't know what that is. I don't know how it's judged, but it's like a 13.8, which is, I would assume if it's on every other rating, every 13.8 tweets out of 100 tweets is about the WrestleMania is probably how that is rated.
Yeah, that's how like the Nielsen TV ratings work. So
I would assume it's the same thing. It was massive, did huge numbers. I mean, look at Joe Exotic. Just as soon as something new is dropped into the world to be discussed, everybody wants to discuss it, even if it's something that it wouldn't normally be interested in. That would be the same type of thing. The amount of traction it would have on the internet would be massive.